topic proposal assignment, because the assignment will give us a lot of assistance in writing this paper. When we're thinking about this, you're writing this paper and you're wanting to establish the cause and effect relationships. You need to explain to your audience these relationships exist. If you're looking at a phenomenon, you're saying these are the causes, lay out a couple of causes and really explain with evidence that they exist. If you're looking at effects of something, make sure you're looking at the effects and a couple specific ones, giving evidence and really explaining they exist. Don't assume people will agree with you. You're assuming a little bit of disagreement. That's why you need the evidence. That's why you need commentary on the evidence. All the things you've probably been taught previously in English classes. Just make sure you apply them. We're moving at a very quick pace, so that means that you might forget some of the things that you know. Don't do that. Just look at the basics, fall back on the basics, and you should be fine with this paper. You can start with a very clear thesis. What's your position? What do you want people to know about this relationship? You're going to want to deal with possible objections, so make sure you have those in the top proposal. And this is really where I'm helping you figure out where to place your emphasis. If you have a clear thesis, if you have 2 or 3 or 4, probably 3 or 4, maybe a fifth cause or effect, that's going to be great. I can help you narrow down and whittle it down, and maybe even give you some suggestions on which one would be the best given your target audience and your purpose. You don't want to just throw any cause in there because it may be counterproductive to your case. Think about what you want to accomplish. Think about who you might be writing to. That'll really help you decide where you want to go. These are innate skills. If you're talking to your boss, you might not say the same things if you're talking to one of your coworkers. We know this when we're communicating with people. Don't throw that common sense out the door when you're writing your paper. Think about those things, and that'll help you decide what needs to go into the paper. Annotated bibliography, the research. So far, we've had a heavy research component. You've been going through the library databases. You've been searching for articles. You've been rhetorically analyzing articles. You're picking them apart to see which ones are good and which ones aren't, to see where the emphasis is and where it's not. That's good. Now you're going to write your paper, and you want to apply some of the things you've been seeing. You're going to want to be thinking about what the best sources of evidence are to support your main points, or in this case, the causes or the effects you're going to be looking at in your paper. So we have the tips for writing the paper. I'll drop right down to this visual. I've added a second visual to the side here, and I'll get to that in a second. But this visual for organization really illustrates what I'm talking about. You introduce the effect or the cause, whatever the phenomenon is in the introduction, and you begin to explain the importance. You might even identify the causes or the effects in that introduction just to lay out for your audience what they're going to see in this paper. And after that, you just work sequentially through each one of those pieces, your main points, whatever they're going to be. Over here on the right side, you'll see basically the same thing, just broken down in the way you might be more used to seeing it. You have introduction, lays out what the phenomenon is, talks about what your position is, prepares your readers to follow through, to follow your ideas and track along with you as you go. Then, one of your causes, whatever it's going to be. Lay it out, give some evidence, explain it. Again, anticipating people will disagree with you, but explaining that it's there and it is significant. Transition to another one. Transition to another one, possibly another one if you have a fourth one. Then you move into your conclusion. So your intro, why should people care? Thesis, your position and your reasons. And then those body paragraphs, separating out into individual paragraphs the specific causes, if you're looking at causes of something, or the specific effects, if you're looking at effects of something, and explaining with evidence that those things actually exist. And to further illustrate this structure and that it's a very doable project within this next week, you've already done a lot of the research, you've done the thinking. The writing is really the afterthought in some ways. The invention phase of figuring out the pieces you're going to include, that's really the hard work. And that's what this class is meant to help you understand. And that's a transferable part. That's what we'll leave this class. You can always plan and think about the pieces and think about how they fit together and how certain audiences need certain pieces of evidence or certain main points. That's going to be useful no matter where you are, whether you're in school, whether you're in the workplace. Let's look at an example of a paper very much like the one you're writing. Here's a student draft from the Writer Studio webpage. This person's writing about antibiotics in livestock and how that is a bad thing. So we have the thesis right here. Introduction sets up the issue. Thesis comes in. By giving livestock a weak dose of antibiotics throughout their lives, you're breeding stronger bacteria. The farming practice must stop. So right there you got the person's position. Then we got some reasons after that, because eating meat grown under these conditions is not only dangerous, but it supports unethical, money-hungry factory farms. So we got a couple of the broad stroke issues that are going to be addressed in the paper. So we move there. What do we get? in this first main point, or the first cause in this case, because this paper is exploring the causes of why this phenomenon of giving livestock too much antibiotics actually exists. So one of the causes is the FDA. It's kind of weak. The regulations aren't strong enough. This section talks about that. There's a quote from somebody in the FDA, and they begin to talk about the complicating factors and why they can't regulate more. We move down to the next piece. What's the next piece? Another cause. Agricultural industry wants to maximize profits. So you get that right there. They're telling you that, then there's some evidence to support that, and they move on to the next piece. What's the next cause? Next cause, lobbying firms. Lobbying firms from the Farmers Bureau, U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance, and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and Monsanto. All these different groups lobbying, giving a lot of money towards legislation that will make it easier for them to be able to use antibiotics and say that they're not harmful. Then we get to another cause. Not enough money for long-term research studies. Again, you're seeing the process here. You're laying out the causes, or this student's laying out the causes. 1, 2, 3, 4, bang, 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 bang. Not just leaving them out there with one statement, but going in, giving evidence. This section looks at a research finding and talks about why more of these studies aren't conducted. Then we get to the consideration of opposing points. Here they're going into looking at a particular person from the agribusiness industry who says, hey, if we didn't use antibiotics on livestock, the livestock would be sicker, it'd be too expensive for us to raise them, which means it would be more likely that you'd be paying a lot more money for your beef, and the animals you were buying would be sicker. So that's what they're saying. But this person doesn't just leave that. This author goes in and begins to explain some of the reasons why that isn't necessarily the best perspective. So you introduce the opposing point. You just don't let it stand on its own. You can challenge it too in that section. And then we have a conclusion that ties it all together. So you'll see that this person has basically done what our top proposal sheet is suggesting you do in the options for organization. This left-hand column or the right-hand column, they basically say the same thing. You introduce the issue, you explain the importance, you list out the broad strokes of the main points you're going to cover. Then in each individual section, you provide not only the topic sentence that encapsulates that main point or that cause or effect, but also the evidence that explains what's going on. So if you're having any problems with this after you get the rough draft written or as you write in the rough draft, feel free to email me. I don't mind having a Google Hangout with you to help you do this. I don't mind working with you in any way that I can to help you shape up your paper. But make sure you're working on these process pieces, because if you completed the research in your assignment, I make comments on that to help you narrow down. Top proposal, I will help you narrow down some more. Rough draft, I will give you suggestions again. And final draft, I'll give you suggestions. So each time I'll be giving you little by little some advice, and I'll help you shape up the ideas. But ultimately, you have to have ideas. You have to have a clear direction you want to go. You have to be able to offer information to your readers. And really, you need that evidence. You can't just make claims. You can't throw anything out there and expect it to be accepted. You have to put it out there, support it with evidence, comment on the evidence. So that's it. I think we're doing a good job. We're moving at a fast pace. So you're doing a good job keeping up. If you're falling behind, again, email me, email Victoria. We can do our best to help you, try to give you some extra suggestions. One last thing. Try not to wait till the 11th hour to post your responses, because as you've seen, Blackboard's having some maintenance issues, which might lead to you not being able to post your work on time. Good luck. I'll read your work. I'll leave you comments, and I'll talk to you soon.